Howdy everybody in YouTube land. This video is about a machine that, I didn't do a video on years ago because it's the same old thing that's on my channel over and over again, and this machine was no exception. This is a Toshiba T4600c, and it needed the same thing everything else does. There's a pile of capacitors in the logic board that had to be replaced. There was a pile of capacitors in the LCD panel that had to be changed out, and I needed to run patch wires in the LCD panel. Regardless, it was just a royal pain in the ass, and I never did film any of that stuff. But I decided to pick up the camera this time for another reason, and that is this guy right here. I noticed a number of years ago when I was working on this thing, the floppy drive would not read anymore for some reason, and I just shelved it, and I didn't touch it for a few years. So I decided to circle back around to it, and here is the drive. So I decided to take the drive apart, and the thing is, in order to get to this drive, it's a pain in the ass. All these screws and plates and plastic pieces all have to come out, and the screws are all different sizes, so you need to make sure that you mix them all up like I did, so that way everything goes back together just perfect. Being a smart ass, by the way. Yeah, so I got the drive apart, and I noticed right away that we have an electrolytic capacitor on here that's going to need changed. Although I don't see any signs of leaking, so that is probably not our problem. The ribbon cable for the drive is soldered directly to the drive, and I didn't see a problem there either. What I did see, though, is in this drive, I don't know if you can see it in my camera, there's a belt. There's a little black belt. Let me see if I can hit it with some light. There's a little black belt that goes from the pulley and wraps itself around to that guy, which seems to be an idler, and goes over to this motor. And the belt is intact, but what I noticed is when I move that belt here, let's see if I can get it in the light. I have no lighting here. One thing I noticed, that when I move that belt, it just kind of it's very, I'm trying to do this single-handedly. It's just very, you see that? It's just very loose. So that belt is no good. It's got to be changed. So, and it led me on to that discussion, because I was in a Discord group the other day having a conversation with some people, and someone had mentioned that these drives had belt, and I didn't know that. So I'm like, well, I should pull it apart and double check. And sure enough, I have, I had to order the belt. I got my address on there, so I'm not going to flip it over. So I ordered the belt, and now I've got to get this drive apart somehow and get down to that belt, which I think is going to be absolutely fun to do, because this so I got to think of how this drive comes apart. I have no take apart diagram on removing this drive, so I'm gonna have to work at this for a minute and figure out what I got to do. Alright, so here's what I learned. Trying to get this out is nearly impossible. So what I did was I pulled the screw out here and here, and there's a little metal bracket that goes around there. I lifted the motor up so I can get one end, or get the belt out of the pulley. Then I was able to take my pick tool, get in there, work around, and just pull the whole belt out. So now I have this belt, and it's a little bit gooey. It's not really breaking down yet, but it's got these indentation marks on it, so this belt's pretty much shot. The other thing I did, because the spindle was a little bit hard to turn, was I added a drop of oil in that bearing and kind of worked at it a little bit and spun this around. So now, at least when I spin it, it's real easy to spin now. There's almost no resistance. I'm just barely touching it. So that should be good to go. Now the fun part begins. I got to figure out how to snake the belt. I think I want to put it around this pulley first, And then, actually, you know what? Hang on. Oh, don't you dare hide, little guy. You're going to have to go. Alright, well, looks like I'm going to have to pull the motor and replace this capacitor first. I can't leave that in there. We all know what surface mount caps do from this era. Anybody that's worked on Macs enough know exactly what they do, so that has to go. Alright, I got the capacitor removed and the pads cleaned up the best I can, and sure enough, that sucker just started leaking. I mean, literally just. So, yeah. Just goes to show you the unhidden, well, I don't want to say unhidden, the hidden dangers that are now unhidden that are in some of these stuff. Most people think about, well, I'll just change the caps on the motherboard or the power supply, and that's great and all, but a lot of people forget about these things. And guess what? It's got the same crap in there, just as we just saw. And I didn't even think about it when I worked on this a number of years ago. You know, just so happened to know I'm going to need a belt, and then I see that. And then there's another one that's still on that board that has to be done. So, just something to think about going forward. Alright, I got a tantalum capacitor in here because that's what I had on hand in that voltage. So I went ahead and did that, and I got a new ceramic over here on this one. I'm going to go ahead and go through my parts bin and see if I have something for these two. They don't show any signs of leakage, and they're probably good, but I really do not want to take this drive apart again, at least until I'm in my 60s, which is a long way off from now. So I'd rather make sure this thing is going to hold up for the little I'm going to use it anyways, because of how painful it was to get that thing apart. So I'm just going to go ahead and get these two changed out. Hopefully I got something on hand. This is a 10 microfarad at 16, and this is a 3.3 at 25. I think I have the solid versions of those, but we'll see. And I still got to get the belt back in this thing. That's going to be fun. Alright, the solid capacitors are in there now. I got a replacement there, and I got a replacement here. They are ceramic based instead of electrolytic, so I don't know how they're going to play with the servo. So we'll have to mess with that by ear, but let's hope it works. Let's hope for the best. But yeah, it's done. All the old caps are over there. So now it's time to get the belt out of the package and yeah, snake that in there somehow. Man, you can kind of hear it raining outside again. It's been storming a lot lately. Anyways, got the new belt, and you can already see the difference. Well, there it goes thundering again. Yeah, this is all egged out and stretched compared to this. So yeah, you can definitely see the difference. I'm hoping we're going to be able to fix this drive. We should. In the meantime, I suppose I can throw all this crap in the trash can. So, yeah, this is all garbage. Garbage. This is what I was using to clean and re-lubricate things on the capacitors and the rails and all that stuff. So, let's get the new belt in there. This is going to be fun because you have to basically try to snake this through here. And then you got to get the motor on first so we don't lose it off the pulley. And then I got to use the pick tool to try to get under here and grab it and manipulate it around. It's going to be fun. I mean, it'd been a lot better if I could take that off, but I don't see an easy way to do that, and I do not want to break this drive, so I'm going to have to do this the hard way. And it's going to take some fine manipulation of getting this belt in here. And yeah, it's going to be fun, but I think I can handle it. Yeah, should be good. I'll just get it, and I got to be careful of this cable because it plugs into the board. Okay, so after fighting with this for a long time, I finally figured out how to get this out. And the way it works is this guy, this eject button sits right here, and there are two little pieces of metal tabs that you have to twist and pull that out. So they've been removed. And then there's springs that go between here and here. You know, there's a point where there's one there and there's one over here that hold it in together, and they're sitting over there right now. Then what you can do is you can move this carriage a little bit, and then this guy will just lift up from the front and then carefully slide out from where the head is. Now I can finally get to this thing because I was fighting with this thing forever. Alright, so a little bit of time has gone by. This was the brand new belt, and I went to put it in, and it's just way too thick. It does not fit this drive. This is the original belt, and as you can tell, it's thinner than that one, bigger than that one, you know. So, and I tried to do the belt boiling trick with this, and it just will not retain its shape. It just like, okay, so it's not going to work. So I had to do some digging and figure out that, you know, went to another website, and sure enough, ordered yet another belt. So now we're going to check this one and see what we have. Alright, so here's the new belt. This is the part number. It's for the 279. This is the 278. So that's the 279 Toshiba Satellite Matsushita belt from Console 5. That place has been pretty awesome. I've ordered from them a couple times lately. And then they send you, you know, this, which I'm not going to eat. But the problem is, this particular belt uses a half a millimeter thickness and about 1.2 millimeters width here. And it's roughly, you know, 95 millimeters long when you stretch it out like this. Which that belt is just not common. I tried and tried and tried and tried, and I just cannot find it. So, I went to these guys. This guy seems to think this one fits, but one thing I've noticed right away is the belt is much thinner than this belt. It's not nearly as tall, and it seems to be as thick as it is wide. So that tells me this is a square belt and not a flat belt. So yeah, I mean, look at the difference. So once again, I don't know if this one's going to work, but we are going to try, because if this doesn't work, it's a lost cause. I can't fix this drive. These drives are just not going to be repairable if I can't get the right belt. Sure, I've been hearing a lot of rumblings about 3D printing a belt, but that's not something I can do. You know, I'm not a CAD designer when it comes to using, you know, like SolidWorks or something like that, so I can't do anything about that. Plus, someone would have to mic this belt out, get the exact dimensions to be able to try to use a filament to work with that. Not something I'm capable of doing, because I know there's more of these drives out here with this problem. So I'll try this one. We're going to see what happens. And if this works, well, you'll see it in this video. Alright, as expected, the unfortunate reality here is this belt, the second belt that I bought, is a flat belt and does not work. I put it on, the two rubs together, and you can't really turn the spindle. So I stuck the original belt back on. I did boil it using the boiling trick, and it's better than what it was, but as you can tell, it's still not perfect. But at least there's no drag anymore, and I can actually turn this spindle now, where before I couldn't. So I'm just going to roll with it and see what happens. Obviously, it's not going to be a permanent solution, or this is, there's not much I can do. 3D printing might be a thing, but I'm not sure how to do that or any of that. So I'm really at a loss of what to do here. So I'm just doing the best I possibly can at this point. So I'm just going to go ahead and put it back together. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I'll upload the video anyways, because it just shows you what you have to go through when it comes to working on stuff like this. So nope, hold on. Yeah, this is why I hate floppy drives. It just aborts saying not ready. So I did some communication online with a couple of people that's kind of helped me out. So I got a tip. First, I got the service manual that has the wiring to this pin header, so I know I can wire in a GoTech or something if I wanted to, but it would be fugly just because of the way the floppy drive is and it's white and all that fun stuff. But he mentioned to check the track 0 sensor, as well as move the head out and see if it would retract on its own to try to roll out the controller. I cleaned the switches and checked the disk detect switches, and they're good. That's not my problem. So I got to thinking, okay, well, let me move this out, and which I did. And then there is the track sensor back there, but it's optical. So I'm like, okay, well, how is that connected? So I took the board off and looked behind here. I put the board back on, but you can see it. You see that white pad that's in there? That's a zebra strip. So this thing's not wanting to focus. So the sensor is connected via zebra strip to the main board. And I've, you know, it's like, okay, well, what holds this down and, you know, makes a good connection? Because that is an optical sensor, so it has an LED. It's going to draw a bit amount of current. And if this is not making good contact, that LED is not going to glow, or not going to glow bright enough, and it's not going to be able to tell that the head is back in its position. So, hence, drive not ready. You know? So I'm thinking, okay, well, let me take a look at the lid. And that's what I noticed. I saw these teeth here that kind of go back behind a screw and hold it in, but then I'm looking at the bottom of it. But you can kind of see, I don't know if it's, you can see that the outline where there used to be a pad or something there. Right? It's gone. There's nothing there. It's missing. So that would make sense. That would really make sense. These two belts, the only two that are available, do not work. They won't work on this drive. I tried. So I boiled the original belt, and it still has its elasticity for now. Worst comes to worst, I'll buy a 279 drive, which this belt fits, and do that instead. Because this is the 278 drive. And these drives are getting hard to find because I'm competing against the Yamaha samplers and all of those other guys that are into music. But anyway, so this drive has something, you can see the outline where there's something goes here and it just pushes down on the board. And there's a clip here to prevent that from being, you know, from slipping out, but there was something here. So I just wonder if that is the cause of all of our problems. Well, I'm going to need to find something to slip in here and see what happens. I did, however, I think I already threw the Q-tip away, but I did clean the zebra strips and clean the carbon with some alcohol right here to clean off any debris that might be there, creating an insulation barrier. So I did do that, at least. I took the zebra strip out and did all that. But I'm going to go ahead and try to find something and squeeze it in there and put this drive back together and see what happens. I hope this works. I really, really do. Because this laptop is in mint condition. I'd really like to keep it good. So this is probably a terrible idea, but I keep these VHB rolls around. So I just stuck a piece of VHB on it, and I'm going to... hopefully it adds the appropriate amount of thickness. So I'm going to push it down a little bit, and then what we're going to do is put that on there. I'm going to leave that in place so the two don't bond to one another, because that would just be silly. So I'm going to go ahead and leave it like that, and hoping this is not too thick and I can get the clearance right and snap that guy back together so it's just in there. Alright, well, let's go ahead and let's hope for the best. Got it clamped in there, and that is just way too thick, very bulgy. So I got it to go in there though, but man, well, I'm probably not going to leave it like that. I'm going to have to find something thinner, but for now, that's a good way to see if this drive is even going to attempt to come alive. Alright, so the drive is back apart. This is really turning into a fiasco. And it's because the belt stretched itself back out and it's not spinning anymore. The motor's just meh and not really spinning the disc. And the way I could tell is the position of that hasn't moved since I've inserted the disc and tried it. And I got the same not ready error. So, yeah, alright, so these belts are not quite the right ones, and unfortunately, it's just the sad reality. This belt rubs right here and wants to ride the pulley, so I'm going to try it. I'm not against trying things, so let's just try it. I mean, I've got nothing to lose, so I can't find the right belt. This belt would have to be measured, and it would have to be 3D printed or something like that, because the belt just does not exist for these anymore. So we'll try this one from console 5 and we'll see what happens. I mean, that's all I can do. If this doesn't work, then this drive is condemned. There's no chance of repair. It is the unfortunate reality with this stuff sometimes. Yeah, see, this is the original belt. It's already lost its shape. So, yeah, it's not going to work. This is the belt from console 5, and the way you have to do these is you have to take the 2 screws out for the motor, and you have to unsolder the wires so the motor will come out. It'll allow you to thread the belt around the pulley back here, and then quickly, while holding the belt from falling off the pulley, get it in here and line it up so you can put the screws back in. So the belt is on there. The problem is it wants to rub right here. I don't know how much of a problem that's going to be, and it feels kind of tight. See, I mean, that's not terrible. We'll have to see how that works. But yeah, we'll try it. I got nothing to lose at this point, so we're going to go ahead and put it back together. And the thing is, with this, there's 2 metal standoffs, which I've said earlier in the video that you have to keep untwisting and twisting to get the eject button out, and I have a fear that these are going to break off. And when they do, you're done. There's no way to hold the eject mechanism back together. So we'll see where we can go from here. Hopefully, hopefully this is it. That head did return back to the home position and stop. So that's actually a good sign. That means it's able to detect a sensor. So that's good. It returned back. Now I just have to deal with the belt problem again. Oh well, the things you do to have fun, you know. So I've come to the conclusion that it's either a bad head assembly or a bad controller chip on the board. So I got this one, which is the EME278TB and versus TY. The cool thing about this drive is new old stock. This is a new old stock drive. So now I've got to move the belt and change the belt and all that fun stuff, but that should solve my problem. However, there is a difference, and that is how the interface is done. This interface is done press fit like this. This interface is done soldered directly to the board. So I'm going to need to figure that out. And actually, once I change the belt, I can actually lay the head situation to rest by moving the board over. And if this drive does the same thing, then we'll know. But I don't suspect it will. I just need to find a way to move this cable to this drive. Here's my current plan. Now, I took the meter and measured the heads, the resistances between the 2 heads, and they match. So I don't know if we have a head problem, but we may have a track 0 sensor problem, which comes through that zebra strip from here into those 3 pads right there. Now, if there is a bad LED or photo transistor in the track 0 sensor, you know, it's going to keep saying not ready and work either. Now, what I'm going to do, I got to get the belt back out of this drive anyways. I want to move the belt and the board from this drive into this new old stock drive, and I'm going to put this in. First off, I got to take all this stuff off, but I want to put this in and see how it acts. See if the problem remains. If it does, if I still get not ready and won't format or read discs, then I know for a fact the problem is in this board, one of these 2 ICs. So, well, let's start rolling out some theories. So I got the old drive taken all the way apart. Now here's the new drive, and I got it apart now because I wanted to get to the belt and replace it, and that belt is actually still good. Yeah, it's still very sticky and tensiony or whatever. So, but I'm going to change it anyways. So, but it just kind of tells you this drive had no use. So there's the replacement that's over there. I'm going to put that belt on here and replace this guy. And then I think, I don't know if they're the same, but it's a double-edged sword because that has a press fit where this one doesn't. So I wonder, because I want to put this board in and see if the problem still exists, but at the same time these boards are different. They're not exactly the same, which means they're probably not calibrated to the same head. So I'm worried, and I'm hoping it doesn't damage the head. But figure out a way to remove that, and then remove this cable without damaging it, and moving it over here is also just as difficult. Decisions. Well, unfortunately, I was going to try to use the same board. I got the belt changed and everything out, but it's not going to work because the that there is different. Because on the original board, it's over. Yeah, that won't work. So I have to use the board that came with it. And I took the cable off, and it's actually double-sided soldered. So yeah, that's fun. Yep. Well, that was a royal pain. And that's a mess. It's double-sided. Now whether that works or not, I don't know. I just gotta hope that it does. And if that don't work, it's GoTech time. Alright, the drive's installed, and we're gonna see what happens here. Maybe. I don't know if it's gonna work. Okay, we're on. I think. Yep. Of course. Floppy drive. All of that. I'm gonna say we're okay. Yeah, we'll reboot. So let me wait for this thing to start up, and we'll grab a floppy disk. Alright, waiting for it to start up. Okay, so let's put that in. Am I gonna get not ready? What does it do? Ah! That almost feels like the floppy controller itself is bad on the motherboard. That's crazy to me. Huh. Well, more investigations needed. I thought I had too, since that white cable messed up on me. That also powers the motor, because it's not even trying to spin. So I gotta figure that out. So yeah, that's what it is. I'm missing the little plastic tab that's supposed to go back here to make this thicker to fit into that connector, because it's the same as those, and these all have those plastic tabs, and that's missing on this. So I don't know where it went, unfortunately. Yeah, that's why it's not working, so I gotta find that. Yeah, it fell on the floor, so the little piece fell right off of this cable. That explains why it wouldn't plug back in. So I gotta figure that out. I managed to get that little thing slid back in there, so I'm gonna go ahead and put this back together, and we're gonna try it again. Alright, so let's try this again. Okay. I'm running out of ideas. Yeah. I hear it spinning now. But I think we got a bad floppy controller. I hear it spinning. Alright, head just bumped back and forth. Yeah, I heard it try. But I think we've got a bad floppy controller, because it's doing the exact same thing. I can hear it, the head try to read, but... So, okay. Alright, well, we're going to need to investigate the drive controller. I think the service manual for this is available, but I don't think the schematics are. So either A, I'm really unfortunate and this drive is bad the exact same way, which I don't think so. Or B, perhaps more likely, is this chip here is defective, the T4920. Unfortunately, I can't find that chip through the usual channels. So I think in order to fix this properly, I need to find another parts machine, and they're kind of going for stupid money on eBay right now, which what isn't? So I think I'm just going to put this together until a parts machine pops up. It sucks too because this thing is in immaculate condition otherwise. Or perhaps what I can do is just modify the hard drive solution to use an SD card or a CF card or something, and figure out a way to make a removable SD card, so that way if I need to fix it where it doesn't boot or change the operating system or something, I can just, you know, pop an SD card out somewhere. That's kind of what I'm thinking at this point, because otherwise this machine can only boot from two sources, the hard drive or the floppy drive. If the floppy controller is bad, well then guess what? I can't, yeah. I mean, it's possible there's an open trace somewhere on there, but I verified everything from this cable to this chip and it's fine. So the only other thing it could be is maybe the main CPU to this chip could be problematic, but I'm not sure. This only controls two things. It controls the floppy drive as well as the PCMCIA socket. Now, the PCMCIA works on this machine. So does the beep, the buzzer, which is, you know, the speaker, which also works. Only the floppy does not work, and it's the control line or the data line. Because I was looking up the pinout, there's all of these control signals, which they all work, but then there's also a data read, data write, and it's like the floppy drive's not able to. It's like the chip is not parsing the MFM data from the drive, so it thinks there's no disk in there because the head's not returning anything. So I don't know. I'm really at a loss here. So I think there are times where you just have to know when to call it, and this unfortunately might be one of those times.